Transportation and Environment Subcommittee meeting. Today we have Workers' Compensation Commission as well as the Maryland Tax Court. We're going to start with Workers' Compensation Commission. We're going to have Mr. Richards, our analyst, to start us off. Mr. Richards.
Good afternoon. My name is Micah Richards, and I want to thank the chair, the committee, and the great state of Maryland for allowing me to speak before you today. I am presenting the Workers' Compensation Commission Fiscal 26 Budget Analysis. In this presentation, I will refer to the Workers' Compensation Commission as WCC. Starting on page 1, the WCC receives, processes, and has 10 commissioners that adjudicates on-the-job injury claims. The fiscal 26 budget increases by around $656,000 compared to the fiscal 25 appropriation to a total of around $24 million. On page 2, 72% of the budget, which is around $17 million, supports personnel costs. On page 3, the largest increase in the budget compared to the fiscal 25 is $1.6 million for salaries due to fiscal 25 cost of living adjustments. On page 4, the Comp Hub Enterprise Modernization Major IT Project replaced WCC's aging and complex system to go paperless and streamline operations for more efficient services related to their hearings. This is the largest decrease in the budget of $2.5 million due to the project being completed in December 2024. The total cost of the project was $23.9 million. DLS requests for WCC to comment on how the implementation of the new system has improved agency operations and the ongoing maintenance and operations costs for the new system. On page 5, as of December 2024, WCC has 18 vacant positions, which is more than necessary to meet budgeted turnover. DLS recommends increasing the turnover rate by 3.73 to 7% for a reduction of around $554,000 compared to the fiscal 26 allowance. On page 6 and 7, the WCC goal is to set 90% of hearings within 60 days of the filing date. Exhibit 3 shows the percentage of non-permanency hearings set within 60 days. In fiscal 24, WCC experienced an 8.6 percentage point decrease in hearings set within 60 days compared to fiscal 23, putting the agency below their 90% goal. This is caused by the challenges of implementing the new Comp Hub modernized system, which resulted in scheduling delays. WCC states they will provide training for the WCC community users to get acclimated with the system. On page 7 and 8, WCC collects a payroll-based assessment from the state's licensed insurers. In fiscal 24 compared to fiscal 23, Exhibit 4 shows the total insurer assessment increased by around $2 million. The base insurer payroll increased by around $8 billion. Commission expenses increased by $1.5 million. And as a result, the formula-based assessment rate per $1,000 of payroll increased by 1.4%. On page 8 through 12, I will refer to the Uninsured Employers Fund as UEF. The 2024 Joint Chairman's Report requested WCC and the UEF to establish a work group to study and report on potential changes to UEF's funding structure and operations due to the concern of the long-term solvency of UEF. WCC and UEF submitted separate reports. WCC noted in their report as of September 30th, 2024, UEF fund balance was around $7 million, a $2 million increase from the fiscal 24 closing fund balance of around $5 million. Exhibit 5 shows UEF's expenditures exceeding revenues in fiscal '23 and fiscal '24. Exhibit 6 shows that the increase in administrative cost is the primary cause of spending exceeding revenues. Corvell is UEF's third-party administrator, which is also called TPA. Corvell provides insurance claims management to secure payment of injured workers' lost wages and medical bills. WCC noted that if this data from UEF is accurate, Corvell secured payments totaling $25 million and was paid by UEF $11.5 million in the last 5 years. WCC noted the cost ratio of the contract is not in accordance with industry standards. The Board of Public Works approved on October 30th, 2024 for Corvell to remain as TPA through October 31st, 2029. Corvell would receive $8.4 million by the end of the term. UEF stated that they expect for Corvell's costs under the contract to decrease by approximately 20%, and WCC noted concerns regarding whether the reduction is adequate and if the costs are in line with industry standards. WCC recommends the possibility of an overseer to monitor UEF's balances, TPA administrative fees, UEF staffing needs, and establish standards for reserves. WCC notes multiple potential recommended changes. The changes that do not require legislative action are transferring claims management in-house, hiring a private commission-based collections agency to pursue debts owed to UEF, reduce fines, penalties, and assessments to judgments, and bring civil collection actions. The changes that require legislative action are WCC supports increasing the assessments percentage on awards and settlements by 1 percentage point. WCC disagrees to make reserve setting mandatory. WCC supports repealing the suspension to allow UEF to address long-term needs. WCC supports to redirect civil penalties of workplace fraud from the general fund to UEF. WCC does not support transferring $10 million from the subsequent injury fund to UEF. DLS requests for WCC to comment on its recommendations for an overseer to evaluate UEF staff effectiveness to perform enforcement actions. Additionally, they should comment on their recommendation for a suggested increase in the assessment and the need to set mandatory reserves. On page 14, Chapter 78 of 2024 increased the cap on penalties to $25,000 for employers who fail to comply with an WCC order. As of January 2025, no $25,000 fine has been issued at this level. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the analysts? Senator Roosevelt.
I apologize for being late, but I do know the issue. My question is, are we going to have a separate hearing on UEF?
Yes, sir.
When is that going to be?
That would be, I don't have the exact date, but I can get you the exact date.
Just, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important to look at these together.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to check that out. Thank you.
Yes. I think we've already had this year. I'm not sure the schedule, the way the schedules have been lined up. So we have People's Council and separate from the Public Service Commission, you know, MIA versus, you know, separate from MAFE. So
That's fine. Well, whatever it is, we just need to consider this.
But we will certainly do. Thank you. Any other questions for the analysts? All right, Madam Chair, come on up.
Going to ask my CEO and CFO to come up.
Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Proceed when you're
Chair
ready.
Jackson, and
Yes.
congratulations on becoming chair of the
Thank you
subcommittee.
very much.
And distinguished members of this committee. I am Maureen Quinn, and I am the chair of the Workers' Compensation Commission. Is the microphone on? I see it's blinking. Yes. It's on, thank you. All right, and with me today are my executive trusted partners in governing this agency. And to my left is Teresa Cornish, our CEO. And to my right is my CFO, Dave Jones. And behind me, we have our Director of Fiscal Services, Jay Moore, and our Director of Human Resources, Chris Barrett. Okay, all right. So I'm going to begin today by saying that I think this session, more so than many others, I'm particularly mindful of the benefit of being a specially funded agency. I think you are happy to hear that as well. We are 100% funded by the insurance companies who underwrite workers' comp in this state. We send these companies a bill one time a year. They pay on time. They pay promptly, and that allows us to operate in a very stable fiscal environment. At the same time, the business community continues to enjoy a 15-year downward trend in the cost of premiums to buy workers' compensation insurance. Last year, premiums went down 13.2%. So just by way of quick contrast, profits in property and casualty and auto are under siege, but workers' comp continues to be profitable and is currently the most profitable line of insurance according to NCCI. And a profitable workers' comp insurance industry doesn't just help the business community, it helps injured workers as well. You asked us to comment on CompHub and its impact on our operations and personnel. We replaced our computer system for the same reasons lots of other agencies have, and I don't need to repeat that, but I just want to point out one unique feature in our agency. We actually store hundreds of thousands of people's medical records. We have been computerized since the 1980s. We have, on average, 20,000 claims a year, and we have amassed an enormous library of medical records. And when you consider that, you know, the holy grail of hacking, you know, amongst agents of foreign hackers getting possession of Americans' medical records is right up there. And we cannot be cavalier about our responsibility to store and protect those medical records. We see that CompHub is changing our operations and our workforce needs, but I would say that I think we're still in a phase where we're trying to figure out what all that is. And I'm just going to give you one example. For the past 6 months, we've noticed that the number of cases awaiting hearing, what we call our pending caseload, has been low. I mean, very low, in fact. We only have a month's worth of work in the hopper, to use a legislative term. And so we're trying to figure out, is this just an anomaly that's going to resolve itself, or is this a permanent or accelerating trend? So we've looked at the data, and we have the same number of requests for hearing, 25,000 requests for hearing in 6 months. But if this is permanent, I have to ask myself, do I have enough work to keep my courthouses open 5 days a week? Could I potentially lose security personnel or court reporters who need 5 days worth of work? So this is just something that we have to wait and watch and manage. Another trend, and this one is permanent for the foreseeable future, and it concerns the age of our employees. So 42 of my 111 employees are age 60 or older, and that's 38% of our personnel, and that's 5% worse over last year. But beyond demographics, I think you want to know, why are we struggling with vacancies when we were headed in the right direction 2 years in a row? And my team and I have discussed this at length, of course, and we feel that the jobs that are vacant aren't exactly the jobs that we need. And for that reason, we have reclassified 43 jobs at our agency, which is a lot for an agency that only has 115 employees. So we know this means that our workforce needs are changing. CompHub has eliminated a lot of clerical paper pushing jobs. And we have reclassified and we've retrained those employees to become claims reviewers who do investigation and research to achieve better accuracy in the work that we do. We are also very aggressive about letting people go within that first 180-day probation period. And we can do that because all of our directors have said, I'd rather start all over, rehire, and retrain than live with an underperforming employee for 30 years. And I think that that is the right approach. My next comment concerns an equity pay initiative. You all know that in state government, being paid the same amount for doing the same job hasn't really been true for a long time. Because people who were hired from within state government were discriminated against in the sense that any pay bump they could get from an internal promotion or transfer to another agency was limited to 12%. Meanwhile, someone hired from the outside would be hired at market rates. So Governor Moore asked agencies to review the salaries of all people who did the same job under the same supervisor and make sure that they were paid the same. We undertook that evaluation, and the results were disturbing. And here's what it took to correct this unfairness in just one unit. And I have several units with me, but I think this one is illustrative. We had 10 people in a unit. 5 of them needed a pay raise. One woman needed a $19,000 a year pay increase just to put her on par with all the coworkers that she sat next to every day doing the same job. The second employee needed $17,000, the third needed $12,000, the fourth needed $11,000, and the fifth needed $4,000. So $63,000 worth of pay increases just in one unit. And the story really isn't about the $63,000. The story is about the individual impact and the disgraceful discrepancy in pay. And in particular, at my agency, where our workforce is overwhelmingly female, I think about the disproportionate impact that this has had on the money that women earn. And you take that number annually and you have to multiply it by the number of years of pay discrimination. So I can only fix this problem now and for the future, but if we weren't in a fiscal crisis, I would be asking us to go back just a few years at least and correct the pay of these employees. So I want to specifically thank Teresa Cornish and Chris Barrett for their work on this initiative, but we also want to thank another agency, one that sometimes doesn't get all the credit it deserves, and that's DBM. DBM partnered with us in this initiative, and they did not rubber stamp our requests. They closely analyzed them. They asked follow-up questions. They answered us promptly. And this week, they announced the hiring of a new HR chief for the state. And I will be writing a letter to him, thanking him, but also asking that every single agency be required to undertake this salary investigation work. And I'm hopeful that the legislature will consider this as well. I'm also going to be asking for a meeting with Marie Grant at the MIA because of she has jurisdiction over the licensing of insurance agents. And there is ample evidence that insurance brokers are not properly insisting that their clients buy workers' compensation coverage. And so we have to work together to make that education a part of their ability to, A, obtain a license to sell insurance and maintain that license. And so with that, I'll close and await your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before we go to the other members, I want to commend you all for, one, making the necessary adjustments within your agency, but two, and most importantly, maintaining those folks and training them up to perform, the
Yes.
folks who have been doing the job. Not everybody does that. So
We made that commitment that we would not lose any employees because of a new computer system.
very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Senator Saul.
I'm going to go where I think my good friend, he likes to go many a times, is training. and qualifications. And the types of people that work there, what type of qualifications you're looking into? Is there opportunity for training that they can get the qualifications within, or they have to go without? And the opportunities of moving up in position, can we maybe look at some of those things, or maybe how we could assist in some ways, that is, to help and assist you out in this area?
I'm thinking first and foremost of my comments that you asked me to submit regarding personnel. We don't have 18 vacancies, we're down to 16. We filled 2 positions, so we're glad to report that. But if you look at the kinds of jobs that we have open, I asked our staff, tell me what you think we can really realistically fill between now and August 31st, because we concurred with the budget reduction, because we just don't think we're going to fill all 18 slots, and we want to be, honest about what we think we can do. But the commissioner assistant position, for example, that person works with our judges. Each judge has one. So that's sort of a paralegal type of job. We have a deputy fiscal director. We just filled that position. That requires a college degree. In accounting? I assume. Okay. And then we have deputy HR, and then we have 2 in claims. Is that sort of open to internal training, do you think?
Oh, most definitely.
Okay, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, I apologize.
I thought that was going to be my problem.
I know, we tag team for these situations. But we've actually implemented a very intense training program. This is where we talked about with the reclassifications of our positions we had office services clerks who were kind of working in our mailroom, stamping in mail, going through scanning and indexing. But again, with the implementation of CompHub, it didn't reduce the number of documents that we received, it just changed the way we received them. So in essence, it changed what's coming in the mail. We don't actually have as much paper, but we have it through an electronic process. So we started a training program last year, actually, where we would actually where we would train them to how to do case review, how to do research, almost like an entry for like a paralegal, if you will. So basically, they would even be training to eventually maybe even qualify to be a commissioner's assistant. We don't just implement training for that particular phase that we need it for. It's a building block so that there is other opportunities within the agency. The program's been working very well. We have a lot of excitement, and we have about 9 people actually in that training program right now. And when we hire someone, people from within can post for these positions as well. So the people who are coming from the outside, we don't require them to have a college degree, but we do require them to have some type of claim handling experience, customer service, because they're dealing with, injured workers, they're dealing with attorneys on a daily basis. So implementing a training program that enhances and builds them up for future, not just today, but for tomorrow, because we don't know what tomorrow holds, but we have to give them the opportunity. So there's a lot of training opportunity, advancements, different departments. We do cross-training. They have the opportunity to sit with other departments outside of the claims operations to get familiar with, say, with fiscal division, to find out what they do, our insurance department, to find out what they do as far as employer compliance. So there's plenty of opportunity for change and advancement. We can only provide those resources. We can't always make them take them. And that's the part we're trying to work on to enhance that and show them that there is something more than what they were doing before.
No, that's good to know, because, I think people, when they're in a position or have a job that they do have, I think a lot of them would like to have the opportunity to move up, and making sure that they have in-house training, they have that opportunity, that's all, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And exposure is key to everything, right? So if I know what the agency offers, I'm more than likely to stay there, particularly if the agency is willing to expose me to all that we have to offer. So it's a terrific policy, or terrific steps to take. Senator Lewis Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, there's a lot of conversation out there about federal employees that might be looking for positions.
We've been talking about that.
Is, and that's my question, is that a potential resource, or are the areas that we're hearing about not necessarily providing a skill set or experience that would be relevant to your area?
I think we have a lot of federal workers who are going to be coming into our pipeline very soon. Yeah. We may not be able to compete by way of salary, but if their jobs are closed to them
Right.
forever, and they like government employment and the security it brings, then I think we're in a unique position to take advantage of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So you have 16 vacancies left now? Is that what you said?
16, yes.
16. And you gave a couple of examples, but can you just summarize a little bit? What would be the three big buckets?
Well,
two or three big buckets?
I'll start with the best news. We had a 50% IT vacancy rate when I first came and reported our numbers to you. We're down to 25%.
Is that one person or is that two people?
No, that's 25% of all so it would have been 9 and now it's like 4. And 3 of them we think we're going to fill by August 31st, IT webmaster, IT assistant director. Now that one we have to repost because we recruited and no one competent
Showed up.
again, yeah, but again, maybe this federal pipeline opening up might, maybe we'll just be luckier next time. And then the second is a cybersecurity specialist that we've never had in-house, and that's a reclass pin to bring somebody in.
So that's 5 out of 16.
Right.
What are they, so 5 are IT in one way or another. What's the other big bucket?
The other big bucket, Chris, is that claims reviewing? This is our head of HR.
Hi.
Hi. So currently, the way it sits is there's, I believe, 4 vacant positions that were claims reviewers. But as the chair noted, that we had reclassed positions internally to fill those. And now we're trying to figure out with CompHub how we were going to reclass those positions to better meet the needs around the commission.
So you're not sure what the jobs are?
As, again.
As of now?
As of now.
Right.
I see, okay.
But that was because we reclassed, as she stated, 43 positions since, I believe, February of last year.
I understand. No, that helps. But I mean, the headline there is the big bucket is IT like everybody else. And the others are more nuanced to what you guys do, but you're trying to figure out what to do with it. That's what I take away from you.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay,
I
all right.
think we are still trying to sort through
understand.
the efficiencies of CompHub and what new jobs do we need. We know we need people. We're not trying to discard people, but we want to make sure we get the job description correct because people come and they stay at our agency for 30 years.
I understand.
That's why we have so many employees that are age 60 or older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you talked about CompHub in terms of the efficiencies there. Where are you in terms of figuring out what AI can do for you?
I'm told that we can't do AI and build out and grow into our CompHub system at the same time.
Oh, my God.
But I think there's still some question about what exactly can AI do that CompHub can't. One of the things they're looking at is being able to read forms that come in so that it doesn't have to be done manually. And also read and consume hundreds of pages, say, of medical records and produce a summary within seconds. But I know you're on the joint IT committee, and I'm happy to hear that. And I'd really, you said, I don't know, I watch a lot of these budget hearings. You probably think Maureen needs to get a life, but I totally get that. But I do have like a strong interest in state government and what other agencies are doing.
Right.
And I've been asking myself, we spend all this money on computers, but where are we saving money? I know we're more efficient. I know we're a better government. I know we deliver better services, but where's the monetizing of it? And I look forward to whatever advice comes out of the joint committee and your deliberations.
Well, I mean, with all due respect, the only advice out of our joint committee is is trying to be on top of what agencies are actually doing. I mean, the private sector is going very fast down the learning curve on AI, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
And in talking with the other agencies we've had in, the only one so far that seems to be, we've only had like, I don't know, 10 agencies so far.
Do I get points if I guess the right answer?
Yes, you do.
Okay, alcohol, tobacco, and cannabis.
You watched. Exactly. Exactly. No, exactly. Good for you. He does watch. That's exactly right. I mean, I was sort of stunned that the others are so far behind the curve.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we go to conferences all over the country, and of course this is discussed, but I don't even think the experts that we hear at these conferences are telling us anything definitive.
well, I don't want to solve the problem here today on this one, but I said, as I said to the other agencies, I'd like you to come back next year.
Okay.
With what your AI plan is.
Okay.
Because I think the world's going to pass you by. And it does have tremendous potential cost savings. You know your business better than I do. But when you're dealing with documents, when you're dealing with information, when you're dealing with communication,
Yeah.
AI is your friend.
Yeah.
and that's all you do,
Right,
basically.
yes, yes. We trade in medical records, yes.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I think there's a huge opportunity there. So I want to ask you about that. Secondly, you talked about how you're pretty aggressive in letting people go after the probationary period.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in that a lot. So is that unusual in your experience, given your observer of state government? Is that unusual in state government?
Just to put a finer point on this. And 3 of those vacancies were caused by the fact that we just let people go. We just saw that they, they weren't picking up, things well enough, and yeah, yeah.
But is it your impression that you are atypical in that regard? Or you have any idea? You don't have any idea?
I would say I hadn't seen a whole lot of that at our agency, but I don't want to speak to what other agencies do, because I don't know.
Well, let me ask for the analyst, could we ask DBM if they have data by agency and the detention rate past a probationary period? And by agency and by occupation. Because that's an important strategic issue, I think. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Before we close, one question for you. So you spoke of the roughly 38% of your employees over 60 years of age.
One of them
Could
is
we,
me.
if you don't have it, could you submit to us? You guys have a formalized plan. What do you do next? Couple years, folks are getting ready to step out. What are you doing for your succession planning? Making sure you keep that bucket of experience that's getting ready to walk out of the door. Is there a transition plan that you all have in place? So if you do, please share that with us. If not, then please begin.
I have 5 generations of people working in my work. Two members of the silent generation who are in leadership positions.
Yeah, so we would love to see your transition plan.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, be happy with that.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That
All right,
concludes the hearing.
thank you.
Ready to see you.
And Senator Rosapep, if
you.
you would like me to return when the UEF, that whole discussion comes up.
Up to the chairman.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Yes.
Well, I would just monitor and just be available, okay.
Yes. If you're not already monitoring it.
Yes. Thank you.
Next up, we'll have tax court, and our analyst will get us started. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is David Perpert, and I'll be presenting the fiscal 2026 budget for the Maryland Tax Court. The Maryland Tax Court is an independent state agency tasked with providing the highest level of administrative review on the decisions of Maryland's taxing authorities. The tax court is comprised of 5 judges who are appointed by the governor to serve 6-year terms. Decisions appealed to the tax court include those from the State Department of Assessments and Taxation, the Property Tax Assessment Appeals Board, and the Comptroller, among others. The fiscal 2026 budget increases by approximately $15,500, or 1.6%, for a total budget just shy of $1 million. On page 2, you will see an overview of the agency's spending in Exhibit 1. 91% is allocated for personnel, while the remaining 9% is used for cost allocations and administrative expenses. In Exhibit 2, on page 3, the proposed budget change chart highlights the differences between fiscal 2025 and fiscal 2026. The major increases are $180,000 for salaries and fiscal 2025 cost of living adjustments and $7,000 in miscellaneous salary increases. There's also a decrease of $14,000 for employee and retiree health insurance in fiscal 2026. In Exhibit 3, on page 5, you will see a blue bar that shows about 1,100 appeals were filed with the tax court in fiscal 2024, which is an increase of 50% compared to fiscal 2023. Additionally, the fiscal 2024 orange bar shows an increase of 53% in the number of appeals pending at the end of fiscal 2024 relative to fiscal 2023. The red line represents the clearance rate, which is the number of cases disposed in fiscal 2024 divided by the total number of cases received. The clearance rate was at 72% for fiscal 24, which is well below the tax court's goal of 90%. The tax court should comment on the cause of the substantial increase in the number of pending appeals and actions the agency is taking to reduce the backlog. In Exhibit 4, on page 6, the light blue line represents the 90% goal, the green line represents the percent of appeals cleared in 8 months, and the black line represents the percent of appeals cleared in 12 months. The tax court has been below its goal from fiscal 2019 to fiscal 2024 for the percent of appeals cleared in 8 months, but narrowed the gap significantly over the past 2 fiscal years in the graph. The tax court has met its 12-month clearance rate goal each of the past 2 fiscal years. The tax court has cited several reasons for its failure to reach the 8-month clearance goal. Primarily, postponement requests by the parties appearing before the tax court extend the duration of an appeal through no fault of the tax court. In fiscal 24, 346 postponements were granted. Secondly, the tax court's administrative work is heavily reliant on paper, and information contained on that paper has to be manually entered into an antiquated database that was designed more than 20 years ago. This database's functionality is not optimized for efficiency and lacks some features that a modern database would have, such as the ability to accept appeals documents. The tax court has been working with the Attorney General's office to determine how existing law can be altered to allow the submission of appeals documents online, because that currently is not permitted. The tax court has engaged private vendors and other state agencies for help procuring a new system or utilizing a system already in use by another agency. The tax court is continuing to streamline the process following a hearing, a settlement, or withdrawal of an appeal for a judge to sign an official order that formally closes the case. The manual, paper-reliant process was cited as the reason for past delays. The tax court should discuss potential costs for developing and implementing a new case management system. Additionally, the tax court should comment on what changes it has implemented to decrease the amount of time between the conclusion of an appeal and a judge signing the order that formally closes the case, and other changes that led to the improved percentage of appeals cleared in 8 and 12 months. DLS recommends concurring with the governor's allowance, and that concludes the presentation.
Thank you very much. Any questions for our analysts? Seeing none, come on out. You may proceed when you're ready. State your name for the record.
Sure. Good afternoon, Chair Jackson, and again, congratulations on your chair. And distinguished members, my name is Andrew Berg. I'm the clerk of the Maryland Tax Court. I'd like to thank the subcommittee and hard work of David and our agency's DBM analyst, Daniela. They did a lot of work, obviously, not only helping us prepare the budget, but David's analysis is quite thorough. And as such, the tax court concurs with the recommendation regarding the 26 budget and as well as the governor's allowance. Our written testimony is submitted. Obviously, if you have any questions on that or anything further that David talked about today, I'm happy to answer the senator's questions or follow up as needed.
Thank you very much for being here today. Our analyst did, on page 2 of your response document, he did clarify what the 0.2 FTE contractual position was for. Just a couple of things. The request to the Office of the Attorney General, where is that now?
Yeah, we go back and forth with our our legal counsel through the Assistant AAG. That office has been reduced in number with vacancies, so we haven't, and they haven't fully gone through the regulation review, or even they've identified the certain statutes that have sort of a prohibition on filing the petition form. So that's what starts the appeal process going. And I always forget exactly which subsection is in, but there is good reason to why the court is prohibited from accepting anything but a mailed or hand-delivered petition form. So what we would love to do is, with our future database system, is how folks just submit online, either through a portal that they can enter the information in and submit it straight into the court, or honestly even taking things via email. We take every other document via email, every other filing via email. That's the way that we take things electronically. We obviously still take things via paper, and some folks prefer that. We do have a few folks, not even just a few, we have many property owners who do not have an email address. The court doesn't have a fax machine anymore for obvious reasons, but the hand deliver in the mail, to what extent, that is on time as it has not been on time as it has been, but I can follow up with the AAG directly after the meeting.
If you could keep our committee informed and our as well as our analysts, and it's also for us. It's a good question for us with the judiciary. I know that the Orphans Court has some challenges, similar challenges, having folks be able to file electronically versus paper. So that's a pretty good question for. As we're looking to keep up with the load that you have, the workload that you have, it's important that we can, get that rate up to where you want it. You're 18% off since 19. Lastly, before I pass it on, the request for postponement. The number of requests that you get, and it's at the discretion of the court. However, if I seek an appeal, is there a criteria that must be met, or are they pretty much granted the postponement?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Oftentimes, both parties consent to the postponement. So in that respect, if the judge sort of disagreed, it's sort of strange and probably improper to not grant a postponement in that respect. So the vast majority are in that case, they're consented to. Both parties are okay with granting or having a postponement. A majority of the postponements do come from the taxpayer side. So again, it may be that they feel like they're not quite prepared yet, or some other personal situation is going on. They explain it. Sometimes they're medical and they document that they have a procedure coming up or whatnot. And so the court is very lenient on those, again, especially when they come from the taxpayer side, because it is their tax dollars that are at stake, obviously, in the appeals process. And our mission is to hear cases. So we want sort of both sides to put on their best efforts, and whenever that may be, it may not be as quickly as the court would like, because we like to keep things moving along, and we think that that is good for efficiency's sake. But sometimes postponements are 2 or 3 especially because of medical reasons. Folks are just not healthy enough to travel to Baltimore. We do have hearings regularly in Rockville and in Annapolis here, as well as in Centerville on the Eastern Shore. So there are some geographic conveniences, but a lot of them are still held in Baltimore City.
And that leads to, before I pass it on, again, I said that a little while ago, but during COVID, those hearings were held, PTAP, for example, that they were held virtual.
Right.
As well as for the those who serve on the board. And so has the court considered by way of convenience for some folks who are appealing.
Right, so that's another very good question. When there's a few different types of hearings that the court holds. One is a merits hearing where evidence is provided and the credibility of sort of witnesses is paramount to the outcome of the hearing. And the judges prefer those, as do I think some people, to have those in person so that credibility can honestly be gauged. The other hearings, which may be a motions hearing or a status hearing or just a pretrial conference, can and are often done remotely or even on the telephone. So the merits hearings are almost all still in person, but most of the other ones are easily and successfully held remotely.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move to Senator Roosevelt.
The first question, I heard the answer, but I missed the context. Who is it that cannot send you electronic documents and why not?
Right, so the petition form, which starts the appeals process, it's literally sort of the ticket to get to tax court.
Okay.
To start everything going, is prohibited under the statute that to be an electronic format.
Oh, the law bars it.
Right, so it has to be either hand delivered or mailed or FedExed or common carrier, but that is a statutory prohibition.
So have you asked to get it changed?
We've talked to the AGs to get it changed, but we haven't.
The AG can't change the law.
No, but they can help us write it. They can help us
right.
change things. We rely heavily on their expertise, but no, as far as I know, I started in 2022. I don't think before that it was brought up.
It sounds like a law from the 19th century.
I'm not sure. Well, maybe initially. I do think some of the tax court statutes have been changed more recently, but again, that was before my time.
I understand. Well, just free advice. I'd encourage you to get legislation put together to do it.
Sure.
And I'd be happy to sponsor the co-sponsor in the Senate, because that's ridiculous.
Yeah, more than, yeah.
That's an easy fix. Give me a sense of your, I'm going to call them customers. I mean,
Sure.
How many, I just sort of a picture. Is it mostly homeowners appealing their assessment?
Right.
Is that like 80% or something?
I would say, Senator, it's probably closer to 85 to 90%.
Okay, so it's overwhelmingly
homeowners.
homeowners appealing theirs, but it's also businesses appealing their assessments too.
Commercial property owners, right.
As well.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right.
And what's the breakdown between commercial and residential, would you say? Ballpark. I'll believe anything you tell me.
The number of appeals that we have filed are probably, of the real property appeals.
Yeah.
Probably 2/3 commercial.
2/3 commercial. Gotcha.
yes.
That makes sense. Okay. And among the commercial, I presume it's a mix of big, middle, and small.
Yes, I mean, they can range from $1 billion all the way down to an assessment of less than $1 million.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. Okay. So particularly for the residential, but also the small commercial, the fact that most of what you're doing is not online really disturbs me. And I sort of get and I sort of don't get, come on up, it's okay. I sort of get and I sort of don't get it, that you want to do it in person so you can judge their credibility. That, again, that sounds a little 19th century. I mean, is there any science behind that, or is that like the feeling of the judges?
I would say during COVID, things went horribly wrong. I think maybe they weren't as prepared to be online. So I think the judges were very uncomfortable gauging
The witnesses or the judges weren't?
The judges, I think, were incredibly uncomfortable gauging credibility of witnesses remotely during that time.
I believe that.
And since then, when I asked, there's no real gumption to hold those types of hearings remotely.
What kind of training do the judges get?
That's a great question, because before, I think it was last fiscal year, very little to none. And actually, the statute says anybody who's a voter in Maryland can become a judge of the tax court. There are a little bit of limitations if you're not an attorney in Maryland to be it, but you can be. Fortunately, right now, all 5 judges are attorneys in Maryland. 2 of them have been serving for a number of years. 3 were recently appointed in 2022 by then Governor Hogan. And since then, the chief judge, who was elevated from being a judge beforehand, has encouraged and undertaken his own private time to go to the National Judicial College, take coursework in state and local taxes. And so he has imparted some of that knowledge onto the other judges. We have also set aside some money for judges to take classes at NJC. And we're developing a more regimented training program because our folks are not eligible to sit with the judiciary's training and very formal education.
Well, you talked about the merits. And you talked about credibility. And I've never been in tax court. Sure. I've only been on one jury in my life, and it was a criminal case. And I can see in a criminal case where the cop said you did it, you said you didn't do it, the credibility counts. I don't quite understand it in a property tax appeal case. Aren't there a lot of facts involved and comparables and data?
There are a lot of comparables, but when, like an appraiser who maybe doesn't have the petitioners may bring an appraiser to describe the valuation of the property. And, you know, if those folks don't have certain credentials, it's maybe hard to gauge what their work product is compared to the state's assessor's work product. Sometimes folks will just say, oh, I have a leaky roof, and they don't bring any photos or something like that. Or, you know, it'll cost $20,000 to fix a crack in a foundation. And so these are important testimonies, and it's important also to the taxpayers to present that information, but the judge has to sort of compartmentalize and decide what is a deciding factor in the final full cash value.
But the example you said about, like, I got a broken window or whatever it is, and I don't bring a picture.
Or a receipt, or even an invoice.
But, I mean, I'm just thinking commonsensically. I've never been there.
Sure.
Wouldn't the normal response is, well, when I see a picture, we'll talk about it?
Well, I mean, the picture should be there.
That's my point.
Right. Oh, yes, of course. Of course, the picture should be there, but folks are often not represented, almost none of them represented by counsel.
So that's one of the big issues.
So that may be a fact that they are.
They don't know how to do it. They're not pros.
Well, no.
Gotcha.
Correct.
No, that's helpful.
Correct.
This is very helpful. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate
your patience.
Yeah, I wonder, it's like we keep finding more jobs for the People's Council, right?
A little
From the
different.
car insurance folks to everything else. No, I thank you. This is quite enlightening. You know, I was about to say before you mentioned that the judges are not allowed to sit with the judicial conference training, which is right over here on right in Annapolis, by the way, for the other judges.
Right.
That's interesting. I would love to if you you said there's one judge who has taken it upon himself to sort of train folks up. Think about a training program for the folks that are coming on board.
Right, which he has implemented.
Which is implemented. Have you all put that into is that part of your process, or is that unofficial?
I wouldn't say we're at the early stages. We're in the stages of, we do have a actual product of this is what the training.
You have a standing operation.
Right. But we don't have necessarily a library or a compendium of that information yet, because we're compiling it to present to the.
Are there comps in other states that you? If this particular individual is, you know, brought back information from national conferences, you know.
Right. So I don't know about that. The National Judicial College is actually gives sort of continuing judicial education to all sorts of judges across the country.
Okay.
But yeah, and we've utilized them as well.
Well, yeah, keep us
Sure.
up to date on because, you know, if I'm a novice, I go in and our property tax has gone up, you know, and, you know, I'd like to have some sort of comfort level that I'm speaking to someone who, you know, has some sort of status that I'm doing my mercy on the court.
Right.
So, you know, so if you can keep us
Sure.
abreast of that, Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the chairman kind of hit on this a little bit, that one, the first key observation. It says you should comment on the cause of the increase, the numbers of pending appeals and actions that the agency is taking. Do you have any numbers or anything on that of how I know by percentage, it seems like there's been a lot, but I mean, the backlog and the reduction of that, do you have any comments, or is there any way we can maybe get some information from you about that at the same time?
Sure, I'm happy to follow up. I mean, I'll say that the backlog is a direct proportion to the 50% increase in appeals from before. And it's not like those backlog, like the people haven't had an opportunity to be heard yet. Most of those have been set for a hearing but postponed further. But yes, I'm happy to follow up with harder data.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. No further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right. That concludes our hearing today.